rule amendments that it has proposed respecting Title III of its administrative code dealing with practice, that section dealing with physician assistants, and particularly 4507 dealing with the authority and limitations of supervising physicians. Notice of intent for the rule amendments were published in the July 20th, 2011 edition of the Register, volume 37, number 7, pages 22, 85, and 86. There was a technical error in that notice for hearing in that it was noticed for August 29, 2012. While it is believed that readers would recognize that that was an obvious error, the board published a subsequent notice of intent in the potpourri section of the August edition of the Louisiana Register, volume 37, number 8, pages 25, 41, and 42. Copies of the notice and the potpourri technical correction under discussion today are located at the back table of the room if you would like a copy. The proceedings today are being recorded by a stenographer for the board's subsequent review. And the members of the board who are not present will have an opportunity to review the transcription of today's proceedings before the rulemaking comments are addressed. Now, before the board receives comments, let me just suggest a few rules of procedure, if you will, so that the purpose of this hearing may be better served. First, we'd ask everyone to sign the attendee register at the back of the room. And second, if you wish to address the board with comments, we would ask that you fill out one of the speaker request forms located on the rear table, specifying your name and address, and if you're representing an organization or association, the name of that organization, the capacity in which you're representing. Of course, the attendee register and the speaker request forms are necessary for the board to properly meet its obligation under law, both to respond to the report to the legislature on the comments that it's received, and to respond to you, because each of you who make a comment will receive a written response from the board addressing the comment. For those who wish to speak, please give your completed form to Ms. Rita Arsenault right here. She'll collect them and bring them to me. I would ask that anyone who wishes to speak come to this front table, this front reserve table, if you will. There's a microphone there, and start out by giving us your name and the organization or association that you represent, if that's the case. I'd ask everyone to keep your comments cogent. We'll try to give everyone an opportunity, we will give everyone an opportunity to speak this morning. Let me suggest a few rules of procedure, if I might, so that the hearing might give everybody an opportunity to present. First, if your comments concern one or more sections of the proposed amendments, if you know it, please identify the section so that the board members can follow along. Second, if any of your intended comments are made by another speaker, please indicate that when you come up to speak, and provide any additional comments that you would like to have. If all of your comments have been offered by another speaker, that's fine. There's no need to duplicate the comments. You might simply come up and say, my comments have been duplicated by Mr. or Mrs. Smith, and offer any additional comments that you would like to have. If you've supplied written comments, there's no need to duplicate them orally, unless you would like to briefly do so or add something new. Okay? We have probably about 55 to 60 people with us this morning. We may have to reserve the right to limit the amount of time speakers have. Dr. Dawson has informed me that the board has about an hour and 45 minutes for today's proceeding, which would roughly translate into about 3 minutes or so for each speaker. Keep that in mind as we go on. If folks take a little longer, we'll give you a little leeway. But as things get closer to the hour and 45-minute mark, we'll probably have to reserve the right to limit your time frame. Also keep in mind that the purpose of today's hearing is for the board to receive your comments, not to respond to your questions. That task will be dealt with when the board provides its written response to comments after it's considered the written comments and the oral comments. If board members may, they may ask a question or ask for clarification. To the extent you can, please answer it. It may help them facilitate their consideration of the issues. All right. I have 16 speaker cards. I will take those in 17. I see one coming up in the order that they were presented. So I would ask the first speaker to approach the microphone. Again, state your name and address for the record, and if you're representing an organization or association in capacity in which you is. First speaker is Mr. Ken Betson.
I just wanted, if I needed to speak to the issue, I was going to speak. If not, I was going to allow one of our position members of the committee to address the issue.
Okay, I'm sure they've turned in
They have,
a
probably
card.
just any client, either Dr. Traywick or Dr. Greer.
And the second card that I have is from Dr. Laura Greer. So, Dr. Greer, would you please come to the podium?
Bring my muscle with me.
No need for that.
Can you hear me?
Yes. And please identify yourself and the organization that you represent.
Good morning. My name is Lori Greer. I am one of the physician members for the Louisiana State Physician Advisory Board Committee.
I'm Steen Traywick. I'm also one of the two physicians on the EA Advisory Board.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this group this morning. We, as an advisory board, have reviewed all the sections that you've mentioned previously, and I know that there's been a lot of effort between the advisory board and this particular esteemed group of colleagues to go through what we feel would be best for patient care in the state of Louisiana. As an ICU and emergency medicine physician, I work with all sorts of trainees, all sorts of physicians, all sorts of physician extenders. And one of the things that I've done over the last many years that I've done this is I've worked with a large group of PAs. I've had the opportunity to educate from a classroom as well as at the bedside. And one of the things that I do know is that a properly trained physician assistant is someone who is capable of taking care of whatever acuity or type of patient that I've trained them to do. And especially in the emergency department, where I'm sure some of you have worked in emergency departments, I'm sure that you're very familiar with what goes on in some of our emergency departments. And working with the emergency department at LSU, Health Science Center in Shreveport, can be quite an afternoon or an evening's events depending upon what's going on. And one of the pleasures that I have is having had the opportunity to train so many of these folks that have come through there. And there have been many events that have occurred where more than one critically ill or injured patient has come in at a time. And there have been many times when my hands have been tied up and another patient has come in that needs care. And I've looked around the room many times and I've looked to see who was there. And I've picked my PA to go take care of that patient, because I know what we've been together for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and I trust them implicitly to take care of that particular patient. There was a case several years ago, and Dr. Traywick reminded me that he was actually there at the time, where there was a 2-year-old that had come in and was playing with her friends, and she went to blow up a balloon, and she aspirated it. We had no idea that that's what had happened with this particular child. Went to the bedside, the patient was coding, we intubated her, and as I was bagging her, I saw this little yellow thing popping up into the endotracheal tube, where I ran and got a bronchoscope, and while I was trying to retrieve that particular balloon, another patient came in. That patient had a serious laceration with an arterial bleed. And I looked around the room, and I sent my PA to go tie off that bleeder, while my hands were tied up with this particular child trying to save her life. And that's just an example of what we do every day. And to restrict certain procedures such that I have to be at the bedside or some of my colleagues have to be at the bedside is going to be impossible. And there are going to be several times where the health of patients in this state may be compromised because the supervising physician is in the operating room with their hands on the patient. or they're tied up